Traditional versus Roth. Hi, this is financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So in the personal finance space, there's a lot of discussion about traditional retirement accounts versus Roth retirement accounts. Allow me to offer 3 insights that I have that you might find insightful when you're thinking about this issue of traditional retirement accounts versus Roth retirement accounts. My first thesis is that it is mainly a timing issue. That is to say, it's not really is traditional better or is Roth better. It's about where are you in your life's journey, and that timing issue could very well inform a lot of this traditional versus Roth debate. And that's informed by this hope, and it is simply a hope, but I think it's a very realistic hope. The hope is this, that for most Americans, in your working years, particularly your highest working years, you will be in a higher marginal tax bracket than you will be in your retirement years, and even more so, your effective rate, which is really what we're looking at in the retirement years, is almost certainly going to be lower than your highest marginal rate in your working years. So let's think about that. You're working, you're making your way through your career, you get some raises, promotions, you do a move to a competitor across the street, and so they give you more money, right? So your tax rate goes up and up and up. And remember, when you're doing a 401k contribution, that goes in, generally speaking, at your marginal rate. That's the tax rate benefit that you get on a 401k contribution. It's the last dollar that goes in. What's the tax rate or the tax savings on that? Okay, well, let's contrast that to when we're in our retirement. Even if we don't early retire in many cases, generally speaking, in today's world, it's low yields. You just don't generate a whole lot of interest and dividend income, even capital gain income, even if you're relatively affluent in many cases. And so the hope is that many retirees will be in a relatively low marginal tax bracket. And even, retirees go through those brackets. They go through the 10% bracket, the 12% bracket, the 22% bracket. So there's a real hope that if you take money out of a traditional account and convert it in retirement to a Roth, you're going to be at a lower effective tax rate than when you were working. No guarantee on that. But that hope, which I say is very realistic, but is certainly not guaranteed, basically points most Americans, and your circumstances may vary, but most Americans, generally speaking, in the working years, the traditional seems to be sort of the better path in many cases. And then in retirement, the Roth tends to be the better path. But again, this is part of sort of a holistic view of trying to minimize total lifetime tax. So in a general sense, timing suggests that traditional is the way to go when we're in our working years in many cases, and then Roth conversions may be the way to go when we're in our retirement years, particularly if we're in an early retirement and we're at a low marginal tax rate and a low effective tax rate. All right, so that's one thought. Timing is a real key aspect to this entire conversation. All right, a second thought in this issue is, look, it's a circumstance issue. So what do I mean by that? So picture this. You just graduated undergrad or a master's degree, and you have a new job that you get out of graduation, and say your start date is October 1st. So that year, your income's artificially low for 2 reasons. One, you were in grad school a large chunk of the year. And 2, you're a rookie in your career, presumably. So generally speaking, you're going to make very low income that year. That circumstance very much points to a Roth conversion or Roth contribution. Okay. Well, let's think about maybe you're a little further along in your career. You're 10 years into your career. You've gotten a couple promotions. You get a nice bonus every year. Maybe that's a time to say, oh, that's traditional time because, look, my circumstance is that I'm really killing it at work. And maybe you're even thinking about an early retirement. So maybe I'm killing it at work this year and the next year and the next year. But maybe I'm not going to be working for 20 more years. Maybe I'm only working for 3 more years or 5 more years. Those circumstances very much point to the traditional instead of the Roth. And then another circumstance that would point to, oh, I want to really do the Roth would be an early retirement where maybe I'm only in a 10% tax bracket. Yeah, maybe I start doing these Roth conversions, bail the money out of the traditional retirement accounts, when my marginal tax rate is relatively low. All right, so that's a second factor, the circumstance factor. Your personal circumstances can often dictate whether or not to lean towards traditional or lean towards Roth. All right, here's the third one. One of my big theses is do not have every last dollar in Roth, right? I love Roths, right? Tax-free growth, such an easy sell. People love it. Why not? I would submit that most Americans, in terms of their tax-advantaged retirement savings, should not have 100% in Roth accounts. Now, look, if you're that person maybe just graduating from college, yeah, maybe in that first year, just do Roth. You're such a low tax bracket, fine. But for the most part, I would say most Americans should not be 100% in Roth. And I say that for a few reasons. One is opportunity in retirement. So in retirement, you may have an opportunity to do very low tax Roth conversions. In retirement, maybe your income is fully sheltered by the standard deduction. So wouldn't it be nice to take some money out of the traditional retirement accounts, either to live off of or to Roth convert, or both, against the standard deduction and pay zero federal income tax, right? Why do I want to move that money into Roth through either contributions or conversions if the standard deduction is going to be good enough to shelter some of that, right? What if I'm charitably inclined, right? If I'm charitably inclined and I want to give a decent amount to charity in my 70s and 80s, that generally speaking should be done through something called a qualified charitable distribution out of a traditional IRA. Why pay tax on that money if the government has this great program called the qualified charitable distribution where I can send that money that I was going to send to the charity anyway to the charity and not pay tax on it, and it counts against my required minimum distributions every year, right? QCDs are fantastic for those who are otherwise charitably inclined. So why have that money be Roth converted, then take it out of the Roth and give it to the charity, right? Why do I want to pay any income tax on that money at all if the government says I don't have to, since I'm going to give it to charity, and I was going to give money to charity anyway? And then last but not least is this issue of ACA premium tax credit qualification. Now, look, not all Americans will be on an ACA tax or health insurance plan, right? So this is not an issue for everybody out there, but there's a good number of folks who will retire before the age of 65 who will have some time on these ACA medical insurance plans, and it's nice to be able to electively create income. So what I mean by that is, depends on the state, but if you're below a certain poverty level threshold, right? So it could be 150% of the federal poverty level, 138% of the federal poverty level, 100% of the federal poverty level. Look up your state's level. If you're below that, you qualify for that state's version of Medicaid, which means you do not qualify for an ACA premium tax credit. That's a really bad fate. Well, how do you avoid that fate? One way to avoid that fate, to create income so that you can at least qualify for these premium tax credits, which could be worth thousands of dollars, is do some Roth conversions. The only way you can do Roth conversions is if you have some money in traditional retirement accounts. If you go into an early retirement and all you have is your house, a savings account, a small brokerage account, and massive Roth accounts, it's very likely you may not be able to generate the income without part-time work to qualify for a premium tax credit. So in that case, yeah, do not go Roth 100%. So look, these things vary and it's a spectrum, and different folks are going to assess it different ways. But I would say a lot of this comes down to timing, it comes down to circumstance, and it comes down to this consideration that maybe not every last dollar should be in Roth accounts. I'm Sean Mullaney. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.